Now, current events. I was sworn in as a UK citizen October 12th last year by that little, and you can't say dwarf now or midget, but that little midget, you know. I wanted him to stand on a fucking box, but he, as they say in Scotland, he wouldn't. Okay, and there I was, sworn in. 2 hours later, success leaves clues. 2 hours later, I opened up my exploratory committee to run for elected office in Britain, namely Scotland. And that's my chairman, former ambassador, Colin Cochrane. Because when I say I'm going to do something, I do it. And if I say I'm going to fuck you up, kid, I'm going to fuck you up. I'm going to fuck your parents up, your grandparents, your fucking goldfish, your girlfriend. Every place you spotted with your urine, I will kill. When I say I'm going to be prime minister, I fucking mean it. I ain't bullshit. There's been another American prime minister, Winston fucking Churchill. I won't be the first. And I'm going to ride into the parliament on a horse just like this and get arrested. We've already checked. There are no laws against bad words in parliament. Fuck yous, you cunts. There's no rule against bad words. Because back in the 13th, 14th, 15th century, they all swore like drunken sailors. I want to bring a few things back to UK politics. Now, making Angus great again. Fortunately for me, by serendipity, one of my recent superstar couples happens to be from Angus, Scotland. The Carlings. And they are the darlings of UK business now. And I made them just like motherfucking God. I made them. Just as I've made a few of you in this room, which will go unannounced because I don't want you to be mobbed. When I say this fucking system works, it's probably the greatest understatement since Christ. How else could I make John, Dr. John, as smooth as he sounded up here? I had my fingers crossed. Oh, John, don't start crying or don't stumble or don't fall down or fuck. Don't scratch your balls or God almighty, John. But he got through it smoothly. He actually sounded like he knew what the fuck he was talking about. That's the beauty of building self-confidence. That's the fucking beauty of building self-esteem, which most of you in this room don't have any. Now, I was interviewed a few days ago, and they said, okay, you got the Carlings. So you made them rich. They came to me with 5 employees and $1 million turnover, $1 million revenue. They now have 750 employees and 140 million turnover in 5 years. 1 million to 140, 5 employees to 750. And I said, but the newspaper guy said, well, what else have you done? So we went back. My crack staff, and I say crack meaning because it could be crap. My crack staff came up with just a few other people that created 300 million, 100 million, 100 million, 350 million, 1.2 billion, 100 million, 500 million, 340 million, 100 million, 50 million, 50 million, 100 million, 100 million, 50 million, 50 million, 50 million, 100 million, 500 billion, 500 billion, 1.1 billion in the same time frame 5 years that they were active. Same time frame, apples and apples. 2.5 of the 5 years was Corona. And these are only the ones I can talk about because most of my mentees don't want me to use their names. Because they're embarrassed, because they want you to think this meathead did it on his own. And all you got to do is look at him and know he couldn't have done it on his own. They're embarrassed that they had to come to a loudmouth fucking psychopath like me. They're embarrassed with all their fine education. Or the opposite, with no fine education. Man's greatest burden is unfulfilled potential. Most in this room, unfortunately, will die not even approaching their potential. I think I've approached maybe 7, 8, 10% of mine. What about you? What about you? Now, some people say I'm this guy. Well, I've been accused of worse, believe me, much worse. And although that might have been me when I had, best I ever got down to probably 20% body fat. And I used to be a power lifter a long time ago. I used to weigh 287 pounds. I currently weigh 230. I used to block out the sun when I walk in the door. And I tried like anything to weigh 300 pounds. I could never get there. A couple of you could give me lessons on getting to 300 pounds. As hard as I tried, I never got over 287. And then finally, I gave up weightlifting, big weightlifting. It took me 6 years to lose the 60 pounds. It took me only 18 months to gain it. Life's not fair. Now, some people think I'm him. With John, I was him. With John, I was him. But John now can stand up here, having done a great deal, just in the last 3 or 4 months, at the end of the year. But I have breathed life into a lot of people that would normally be considered dead on arrival. Because I've created millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions, billions, tens of billions, and hundreds of billions. And now we're up to 2.3 trillion. The reason why the other gurus don't talk about numbers is because they got no fucking numbers to talk about. Yet you buy their, I don't know if they still sell books, and you go to their things. God bless you. God bless you. Because reading a book, listening to a podcast, or going to a seminar isn't taking action. That's not pulling the fucking trigger. And almost everybody in this room has a trigger to pull. Teenage multimillionaires to 500 billion, which is now 2.3 trillion. But 3 of my favorites during the same Corona period. Now, you've all bought shit at the beach, right? You buy an umbrella, but see the guy down there? Okay. His margins are 98%. He buys it for 2 cents, he sells it for $8. To you, meatheads. Well, he did his first healthcare deal. He's from Malta. He speaks broken English. He did his first healthcare deal for just shy of £1 million. Just shy of £1 million. The girl on the left, upper left-hand corner, the highest priced escort girl in North America. $8,000 to $15,000 a pop. $8,000 to $15,000 a pop. She just put $18 million in her pocket, rolling up aesthetic surgery, plastic surgeons. But one of my favorites, the one on the bottom, pun intended, a pole dancer, a lap dancer. For those of you that are too young to know what a pole dancer and a lap dancer do, ask your father when you get home. She hung up her spikes, as she tells me, having coffee with her a few months ago. £3 million healthcare deal. No education, no qualifications, no certification, no nothing. They just followed the 7 steps. 2 of my favorites, the escort girl at graduation at the castle, sitting here, Sally sitting here, and she's wearing a thing that just barely didn't cover her, the upper part of the nipple. It just covered the thing that pokes out. Okay? She's sitting to my right, and my wife's sitting to my left, and I'm sitting like, and all the guys on the graduation night are all staring at her. And she says, she leans over, puts her head on my shoulder. Mr. Peña, why aren't you looking at me? And I said, I've seen that before. And I want to stay focused on the rest of the mentees. Anybody can do it if they follow the steps. Another mentee, he wanted to be a neighbor of mine. So guess what? He bought this fucking castle 18, 19 miles down the road from me. From Australia, Vietnamese kid. Vietnamese lawyer who walked away from law, which isn't that big a sacrifice in my opinion, but he walked away from law, and there he is. Now, QLA works not just for the meatheads like you, but it works for the sovereign funds. I've been privileged to work with the 3 largest sovereign funds on the planet: Norway, China, and Kuwait. Now, why would they come to me and ask me for advice? I'm a smart fucker, no question about that, because I produce results. When Norway came in 2018, I believe it was, to the castle, they came and spent 2.5 days. When they interviewed Clinton for the same show, they spent 2 hours. When they interviewed Obama, they spent 45 minutes. When they spent, and I can go down the road, and they didn't spend more than 2 hours with anybody. And they spent 2.5 days with me. So either they had nothing better to do, or they like staying in a castle. And I don't believe we even let them stay in the castle now that I think about it. And I told them what they should do with their $1 trillion. They were the first sovereign fund to go over $1 trillion, which was the exact opposite of what everybody else told them to do. That's right, young man. Now, I am proud of where I came from. And you're going to see some slides in a minute. I visited the old school I tried to kill my teacher in. It's the first time I'd ever been in that room that I dropped the aquarium from since I'm 10, 11 years old. But there's a theory out there. You know how the movie Godzilla, little what do you call it, turns into a big monster, right? Because of the atomic bomb, blah, blah, blah. Well, on August the 6th and the 9th, they dropped Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the 2 atomic bombs that ended the war in the Pacific. And I was born on the 10th. We're all just energy, right? So there's a theory with some crackpots like you that follow me think that I'm the Godzilla that came from the worm, blah, 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 blah. Because I am certainly a dying breed. A lot of the kids call me Neanderthal. Neanderthal's brain was 20 to 25% bigger than Homo sapien. Maybe they're right. I remember the $8 that my dad had to spend on those guns. That was my house. You've seen, that's where my house used to be. Behind that chain link fence. There is now a Korean guy that built a house there, and Sally saw it a few years ago. He says, you lived in the lap of luxury. No, that wasn't my house, honey. The Korean guy that bought the lot built the house. So I know where I came from. That's a school that I went to that not only did I get thrown out of school, I got thrown out of the school district. Why? Because from that window, where I'm wearing a mask, because there were students in there, I dropped a 40-pound aquarium on my teacher. It dislocated his shoulder, shoved his shoulder down to here, and if he hadn't moved 6 or 7 inches, it would have killed him, and I wouldn't be standing here. That's the current principal of my school. This is the closets they used to put me in. I used to shit myself and urinate on myself because my parents hadn't come to pick me up. Now just imagine if you or your grandchild had been kept in a closet and he defecated on himself and he was in there 5, 6, 7 hours. You'd cry like a fucking bitch. You'd still be crying like a bitch. There is no statute of limitation. I can go back and sue the LA school district for about $800 gazillion. You'd still be crying. Because you're cunts. You're weak. And John used to be one of those cunts. I went by the church, but the nuns used to beat me, and they closed the church down because of Corona. I thought it was because they were beating kids and shit, but no, they closed it down because of Corona. All those little nuns. We went to the funeral during the same trip, and the same nuns that used to be in that school were singing, Ave Maria at the service. So I went up to talk to them. They had one old nun, and they had 8 or 9 little young nuns. And I said, your voices are, angelic, and everybody's, And I told her where I went to school. And But I don't remember anything angelic about the nuns that used to beat me. Of course, I wanted to be a priest when I was a kid. Hard to believe, but true.